Hello there, you beautiful soul, and welcome back to another Culture Talk segment with Rebecca Munoz, your host of the Cultured Society community. I am here with yet another special guest of mine, which is actually guest number 12. And I had the opportunity to connect with Bonnie Moehle a couple of years ago when I was a part of a business networking group in Phoenix, Arizona. And let me tell you that when you allow yourself to adapt to the constant changes that are happening around us, you connect with some of the most beautiful, vibrant, and just relevant human beings that are a part of this whole experience. And this is really the reason why I decided to start these culture talks, because these conversations are so relevant in the time that we're living in. And we often live in a very segregated and separated community where we really just allow the people that are in the vicinity of our box, right, to come in and be a part of our lives when it's so important to really embrace the people outside of that box and to embrace different philosophies, belief systems, ways of living, ways of thinking, and even healing. And so Bonnie Maley, I really resonated with, because I have been on this journey of self-discovery and healing. And I just believe that it's so important when we are going through a healing process and even just journeying through life, that we really embrace people who are walking in their purpose and who are really here to help others thrive. And so with this, I introduced the Bonnie Maley. So, Bonnie is a personal, executive, and relationship coach and certified hypnotherapist. She was educated at the University of Health Sciences, the Chicago Medical School, and the Southwest Institute of Healing Arts. For over 25 years, she has been actively studying and teaching personal development and alternative types of healing. She speaks nationally and has a private practice in Phoenix. Bonnie feels blessed to have had the opportunity to help many people make dramatic changes in their life. Her individual practice is based on the belief that we all have the unlimited potential to achieve our dreams. Included in her teachings are the how-tos for letting go of critical self-talk, fear, stress, anxiety, and any other challenges that prevent us from living our lives to the fullest. Her programs are designed to promote joy, peace, health, prosperity, better relationships, and overall well being. She teaches us how to live in the flow and to manifest our relationship, or our desires, excuse me. Bonnie is also an accomplished author with two books that have been embraced by readers and endorsed by acclaimed New York Times bestselling authors Jack Canfield and Ivan Misner. In her first book, Thoughts from Within, A Guide to Inner Peace in a Crazy World, Bonnie teaches how to increase self-love and remove the thoughts and programs that prevent us from, from living life to its fullest. In her book, What is Happiness? Where Can I Get Some? Bonnie shares her personal discovery of the everlasting source of happiness and how to find it within. Bonnie also facilitates private workshops for groups and businesses interested in creating stress-free environments, better relationships, and greater financial success. In addition, she has been the keynote speaker at many events, including the Emerging Healers Conference. She has also written for several publications. And I'm going to tell you firsthand, I actually picked up Bonnie's books, and they were so helpful, especially during the time that I was really just seeking a better understanding of myself. And so I really appreciate, Bonnie, you taking the time to really know yourself so well to be able to teach the knowledge through your writing and through pretty much all of your experiences and your work. So thank you so much for taking the time to be here with me.
Well, thank you so much for introducing me that way. And I have to tell you, the whole time I have this big smile on my face because of you. You just have such a loving energy about you. It just makes me want to smile. So thank you for having me here. I'm really thrilled to do this with you.
Yes, thank you so much. And so to all the guests if you have not had the time to join me on these conversations yet, these questions that I'm asking my panel of guests are actually all the same. And what's interesting is that every single person that I have connected with throughout the years is so unique and so different in their own perspectives and the way that they live their life today. And so all these conversations have been very different, even though they're the same questions. And it's so important to be involved in these types of conversations because it gives you it teaches you different ways of thinking and even just embracing and grasping new perspectives. Because although we are a part of one body, we all have a brain, we all have a voice, we all have a heart, we all have, a very similar structure in our bodies. We all have a very different DNA code that's very unique to our own personality, in the way that we were designed to show up in this world. So it is really important that we grasp these perspectives because we can adopt these little nuggets of wisdom to be able to incorporate into our daily life so that we can live out our own personal truth, which is so important during this time. So, Bonnie, I want to take the time to just learn more about you and how you got to this place in your life today and how your philosophies have evolved over the years. So, with the first question being, what is your life's philosophy?
Well, it's really interesting. When I heard that question, a whole plethora of things came running through my mind. And so I even jotted some of them down. And so, some of the things that came to my mind is our reality is created by us. Happiness comes from within. Acceptance is key. Self-love is our true nature. Suffering is a gift. Let go of attachments. Let go of control and just trust. So all those things came through my mind. But what it really ended up with is something that one of my teachers said to me many, many years ago. We were walking through nature one day and he looked at me and he said, Bonnie, there should be another term for spiritual growth because we're not actually growing or gaining or getting something. What we're really doing is recognizing and releasing that which prevents us from experiencing our true nature. And that right there, I never forgot that. When he said that, I said, oh my gosh, say that again. I need to remember that. And it has stuck with me ever since because that's really the truth. We're all identified with our thoughts and our minds and with our egos. And in that identification, we're missing out on really knowing our true nature. And so the whole philosophy is let it go. Stop identifying with your ego. Stop identifying with your mind. And know that all of that is just false and something you can use to create with, but the truth is that you are not any of that.
Oh, that is so right. And wouldn't you agree that as human beings, that is one of the hardest things to do?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I've been working on this for, I don't know, I'd say 30 years, and I still catch myself having those ego type reactions and responses. And, I think the nice thing is that I've been doing it a long time now so that I actually catch it and I catch it quickly and I have the tools to work through it, release it, and return back to my true nature. But I will tell you that it is a challenge to stop identifying with this ego mind and really moving into a state of presence or awareness so that you can know the truth of who you really are.
Absolutely. And I mean, 30 years is a really long time to practice these, because I like to say that this is a practice and it's a daily
Mm-hmm.
practice because every single day where we have the opportunity to wake up and be brand new and do something different. But when do you think that clicked for you?
Well, I would say I always had a curiosity about personal development or spiritual growth. I did not know how as a child to express it. I didn't really quite get what it was. All I knew was that the religion that I was raised with, was not resonating with me because it felt very us and them-y. And I just naturally, innately did not feel like I wanted to us and them. I wanted to include. And so I kind of created in my own mind a way that I thought it should be, but I never had a great way to verbalize it because I didn't even know what it was that was going on for me. And what really shifted me and made me have that moment where I said, oh, yes, somebody who thinks what I think, was when I had come to Arizona. I grew up in Chicago, by the way. And I came to Arizona on a vacation in 1992. And at that time, we went and we saw a lot of Native American ruins. And I was so inspired that when I went back to Chicago, I said, I have to read more about Native American history. Thinking history was what was inspiring me. So I got this book, The Reader's Digest Guide to Native Americans in North America, and, you know, went through different tribes, and here, this tribe lived here, and they built this kind of a hut, or this kind of a teepee, or this kind of a hogan, or, you know, whatever, and here was their art, and I was fascinated by it, but that led to me wanting to know even more. And when I started to read more, what I was really exploring was Native American philosophy. And the Native American philosophy at the core was, we are all one.
Yes.
We are all one. We are all connected. Everything we do has an effect on the whole. And for the first time, I'm even getting chills now as I'm saying it. For the first time, I thought, wow, this is what I think. This is how I feel. This is what I believe. And that kind of led for me to explore a whole lot of other spiritual concepts. I explored Buddhism and Taoism. I started reading teachers like Gary Zukov, who wrote Seed of the Soul. And one thing led to another, and I just kept getting more and more into it and fell in love with the whole philosophy. And so that's kind of how it all started.
Isn't it so beautiful to be able to learn from other people's cultures, especially the Native American tribes? Because there are so many. And growing up in a place like New Mexico, it's very prominent, you know, here. But in a culture that has actually been so oppressed throughout the years, for generations upon generations, for people to be able to grasp those concepts and to take them on, not necessarily as your own, but to really understand that these philosophies are really connected. They're divinely connected, and that it's so important to really embrace them and to live by them. Would you say that that's how your philosophy evolved over the years, is just through learning?
Yeah, so what happened? So once I started to read all of this, and I was so enthralled by it and interested by it, and at the same time, I was also really, really attracted to the whole Native American culture. I went to powwows, and I wanted to learn everything I could about the Native American culture. And then one time I was past life regressed. And it turned out what came up in the regression was that I was Native American in a past life. And I even went to a Native American conference. I was invited to speak at a Native American conference in California. And when I walked in the door, all the women came up to me and they said, "You're our sister, you're our sister." And it felt like such love and connection, and it was so beautiful. So that was, again, the start of all of it. But now here I am, and I'm reading all these philosophies, and I'm really loving them, and I'm really resonating with them, and they feel so right to me. And yet I did not know how to apply them to my life because I wasn't living in that culture, and I wasn't surrounded by people who had those beliefs. It was just like a little lone island there amidst, living in the suburbs of Chicago, or, the suburbs of Phoenix. And, what do I do with this? How do I apply it? How do I live it? And it wasn't until many years later that I developed irritable bowel syndrome, IBS. So many people have it and have heard of it. And back then they did not have commercials with medications for it. And from all of my reading, I knew that we have the power to heal from within. And yet I didn't know how to do it. I thought, if I just get together with more like-minded people, maybe I'll be able to figure out how to apply these philosophies to my life so that I can heal this irritable bowel, because the doctors can't seem to figure out what to do about it. So I decided to start a metaphysical book club. And, I don't know if they use that term metaphysical so much anymore, but back then they did. They called it a metaphysical book club. And so I started a metaphysical book club, and we read all kinds of books like Conversations with God and The Way of the Peaceful Warrior and Gary Zukav's Seat of the Soul, and, had discussions about them. It was so great. And one day, a gentleman came in and he started to share with me ways to apply what we were talking about and what we were learning. And within 3 months, I cured 20 years of irritable bowel.
Yeah.
And it was all just from changing how I was dealing with things, how I was thinking about things, shifting my emotions, letting go of them, letting go of anxiety, knowing how to let them go. And, one of the things for me too, Rebecca, is I am kind of a natural born teacher. I'm the oldest of 4 children. And so I always was the teacher, the leader, the cheerleader, the solace, the caregiver. And so I lost my train of thought. And why was I saying that?
Because it's supposed to shift. You were the oldest of 4. You were the oldest of 4, always the teacher.
Oh, and so thank you. Being a natural born teacher, I think people, and anybody who's a natural born teacher will resonate with what I'm about to say. You can't help yourself. Every time you learn something, this is spinning in terms of how could I teach it to somebody else? And because that happens to me naturally, automatically, every time I learn something, as soon as I figured out how to change my thoughts, as soon as I figured out how to let go of anxiety, as soon as I figured out how to shift something, I was automatically going to, what would I do if somebody asked me, how did I do it? How could I teach it to them? And so that's what was going on for me. And as I learned it and was observing myself and being aware of what I was doing and what worked and what didn't work, I thought, this is too good. This stuff is too good. It's life-changing. I can't keep it to myself. And this is when I went back to school and studied in life coaching and hypnotherapy.
Oh my gosh, that is beautiful. And honestly, if we all thought that way, where we learn something and we learn it in a way that is going to help us teach others how to do the same, we would have so many people, so many more people that are actually healing and doing the work, because that's really what we're here to do, is to teach. And that's such a beautiful thing that you were inspired by that. How would you say that your upbringing and circle of influence has impacted the way that you think and live today?
Well, it's interesting because, again, being the oldest of 4, that absolutely impacted me, because I was the responsible one and I was the advice giver, and I was, come on, everybody, let's not be mad at each other. Let's love. And, that's kind of how I was growing up. However, in spite of all of that, I actually was very, very insecure, and I was a huge worrier. And I was a perfectionist, and I always thought, if I'm just perfect enough, then everybody will accept me, or I'll be loved, or I'll get what I want. So I was very hard on myself. And one of the things that I noticed about those things is that they did take me far. In other words, if I was a perfectionist, if I was a worrier, I would work harder and I would get where I wanted, and I would get the results that I wanted. I had good results quite frequently, but at what cost? And the cost was that I got irritable bowel syndrome. And the cost was that I was stressed out. And the cost was I had panic attacks. And the cost was that I didn't feel good about myself. And so all of those things, they just didn't feel right to me. And then now I'm reading all these books about all these beautiful philosophies, and I'm getting more and more in touch with my body and realizing that everything that I think about and every reaction I have, I'm holding it in my body. I can feel it in my body. And I'm starting to notice that does not feel good. Even things like, for example, how the ego goes, oh, be angry because that'll give you power. I started to notice, no, that actually doesn't really feel good. Oh, judge other people, it'll make you feel better about yourself. No, that doesn't really feel good. And so what happened is I started to notice this doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
And I wanted to feel good. And so, combining reading all of these things, becoming more body aware, noticing how I'm feeling, noticing that there is a corresponding feeling with every thought you have in the body, and realizing every time I had a negative thought or a worry-based thought or a what-if thought or a fear-based thought or a negative, guilt thought or a beat yourself up thought, it didn't feel good. And so that was really what influenced me to go, you have to change this. This is, most people think that feeling icky is normal. It's not normal. It's not our natural state. And I wanted to find out what is my natural state, because I don't want to feel like this anymore. And so that's kind of how the upbringing and the insecurities and all of that kind of influenced me to notice how it was feeling and want to make a change and not be like that anymore.
And I'm so glad that you brought up that point, because oftentimes in our society, we're actually more prone to like accepting not feeling good versus feeling good all the time. And I think it's so important. This is why I came up with this question about circle of influence, because once you start going through these phases of healing, you also start to become very aware of your environment and who you're surrounding yourself with. And that's a choice. It's a daily choice. So do you believe that once you started going through these phases where you're starting to really tune into yourself and how you were feeling, did that change even your circle of influence that you were
It,
surrounding yourself with?
it does. It changes who you attract to you. It also changes who you're attracted to. But you know what? One of the things that I noticed is it's not like I had to go up to my old friends and say, no, you know what? You don't resonate with me anymore. It was very natural in terms of those who wanted to stay in that negative space didn't really want to be around me anymore, because I wasn't going to commiserate with them and I wasn't going to go there with them. And so there was never any abrupt breaking up or letting go of some relationship. It just sort of very naturally evolved, because like attracts like, and they were not attracted to me as much as I was not attracted to them. And so, and now I have amazing people in my life. So
Yes. Would
mhm.
you be able to pinpoint maybe like a specific year? Because I know, like for myself, I started to really shift at about 28. And
uh, yeah. Well, when I first started reading all of this stuff, I was 33. And just, I'm 62 now. And so, I've
don't
been
look that
doing this
way.
a long time. And I would say, even then at 33, I felt like, and then whatever year that was, I don't know. But I felt like very, very moved and inspired, and it like grabbed me. Like I wanted more. I wanted more. I was reading 4 books at once. I'd have a book in the bathroom, a book in the kitchen, a book in the living room. And whenever I'd go by, I'd read a couple of pages. I couldn't get enough. And so I think starting around then, right around 33, 34, somewhere around there, is when it really clicked for me that this is it. This is what I want. This is what I believe. This is my philosophy of life. And again, I've been doing it a long time since then.
Yeah, absolutely. What type of work were you doing before?
I'm sorry?
What type of work were you doing before?
Oh, so when I had a degree in college in radiologic sciences. So I know, what the heck is that? I was the director of a school that trained X-ray technologists. And I taught anatomy and physiology and radiation biology and physics and all kinds of sciences. I had a staff that helped run the school with me. And I will tell you, the physics part of it has come in very handy when it comes to these spiritual philosophies, because it's all physics.
Yeah.
It's all about
Oh,
energy and vibration.
oh yeah. And you know what? I never believe, I believe strongly that even if we were in a completely different career path that is very relevant to the work that we're currently doing, because
Yes.
everything really is like a puzzle piece, right? Like there are so many components of our lives that always end up blending together. And we oftentimes, when we're going through these different phases, we don't really understand it until the unfolding happens. And you're like, that's why I had to go that route.
Yes. Well, and being the director of the school, I also had to be the counselor and the advice giver and all of that. So it was all perfect and it all fits together. And I completely agree with you there. But something else that's really interesting that I just recalled. When I was 29, I had a dream that I was a spiritual teacher. And I
Really?
woke up in the morning and told my husband, and he looked at me like, what? What are you talking about? You don't even, and I wasn't even studying it then. What are you talking about? And I said, I don't know, but it was just so clear and so vivid that I just had to tell you. And it wasn't until several years later that I started to really get into all of these philosophies, but I had a dream.
It's so beautiful because especially as women who have gone through maybe traumatic experiences with their health tend to always go towards that route of some type of healing. And I believe that spirituality, it's used really lightly, but I think that spirituality, or I know that spirituality is everything. It's what we are, right? What we live
Mhm.
every single day.
Yes.
And so when you go through these experiences of knowing yourself, healing yourself, you're really able to tune into that and really allow yourself to be guided into the work that you're supposed to be doing. And with that comes my next question. Do you believe that your line of work and artistry, because I believe that this is an artistry, that it infects our society with positivity?
Oh, of course. Of course. I wake up every morning, I'm excited about what I do. I see my clients and I watch them do this. Oh, yeah. Ah. And it's these realizations that are coming to them and them having this sudden knowing of something they already knew, but they forgot that they knew, or they didn't realize they knew. And so oftentimes when I'm teaching people, they say, I knew that. I knew that. I just didn't, I forgot that I knew it, or I didn't know how to apply it, or my mom told me that a million times, but she was my mom, so I didn't listen to her. But yes, I see people make dramatic changes every day. I've had clients who were suicidal, who are now about to get married and happy as larks and spreading the word and telling everybody about what they've learned and helping their siblings and families through the philosophies that they've learned. And it's, I absolutely believe, and I feel so blessed that I have this kind of a career, that I'm making a positive impact. And I couldn't do anything else.
Absolutely. And what's great is that you've gone through the experience yourself, right? It's not something that you learned just from a book or all the books that you read or traditional education. It was actually applied through your own personal life experiences. And I believe that that's so much more impactful when
Mhm.
we are serving others because you're not coming from a place of I just read this and I know this knowledge, but it's more so you lived the experience.
I couldn't agree with you more. And as a matter of fact, life coaching has become kind of a cool career these days. And there are schools where you go for a couple of months or a few weeks and you get your coaching certificate. And I've had young life coaches or coaches who want to be life coaches call me up and say, we've seen that you've written books and been on television, whatever. Can we interview you? What did you do? And the answer is, I live it. I live it. And I live it because it's the best thing I've ever done for myself. And, when you think about the growth process, once I started this, I know you had a question that we didn't actually talk about, that says, how has its philosophy evolved over the years? And I wanted to speak to that because the philosophy is the same. The philosophy hasn't evolved. It is my understanding experientially of it that has evolved. And so the more you live it, the more you see, the more you understand, the more clear you are about who you are, the more clear you are about who you're not. And that's what evolved for me, is not so much the philosophy, but the experience of knowing it at this level.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm so glad you said that. And I did ask the question, but I kind of posed it in a different way. So I'm so glad that you went back to that. Because oftentimes it's through the unlearning of what we learn in our society, because oftentimes we depend on other people to teach us these things, but yet we don't really allow ourselves to go through the process of actually experimenting and
Mm-hmm.
experiencing the process so that we can really find out what's true for ourselves. Because the philosophy that we learn through books or even hearing it from other people oftentimes won't really resonate at that very moment because we
True.
haven't really experienced anything like that. But once
Yeah.
we allow ourselves to mature, right, through our experiences, the philosophies, we kind of go back to that original philosophy. And you're like, okay, that makes sense now.
Well, it's interesting because I used to teach classes many, many years ago. And I went back not too long ago and looked at my notes and thinking that, oh, I've evolved so much since then. But the notes were the same. That's not what has evolved. It's more, again, just the experience of it. And I like what you said, too, about sometimes you read something in a book and it just doesn't resonate with you at that time. And I'm guessing you can, attest to having the same experience, but I know there have been times where all of a sudden I'll be driving down the street and I have oh, that's what he meant. And I don't know where it came from or why all of a sudden I got it, but all of a sudden it just hit.
Yes.
And whatever it was I read, whatever it was I wasn't understanding. I remember my teacher from many years ago said, Bonnie, when you let go of everything, you'll have everything. And I thought, what the heck does that mean? And then I remember, when I'm driving down the street and all of a sudden it pops in my head and is, oh, I totally get what it means. And
Yes.
so this is a very normal part of the evolution process. Also, something else you said that really strikes me is, I just lost my train of thought again. Go on.
Okay. No, I actually there's a phrase that I always keep with me because, and it goes along the lines with what your teacher said about needing nothing attracts everything.
Yes.
Needing nothing attracts everything. And when
Yeah.
you finally let go of the idea that you have to have it all worked out, right?
Yes.
Or
Yeah.
like this knowing everything, like we don't know nothing, we don't know anything.
Correct.
We're literally figuring it out as we go. And it's really cool to be able to grasp these concepts in conversation because we're able to really feed off of each other. And just like your clients, when they had that aha moment, when you
Mhm.
actually speak it out loud, because oftentimes we'll hear it in our head, but then we don't really trust ourselves.
So true.
Oftentimes we don't trust ourselves. So we have somebody like you, right, who has a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, and it comes through your mouth. It's almost as though you're speaking through the person and you're allowing them to hear their thoughts out loud, and it confirms that what they're thinking or what
Yeah.
they're experiencing is really true.
Well, and sometimes I have clients who say to me, and by the way, I remembered where I was going with all of that. I always tell my clients, let go of everything you've ever learned ever. Let's start over from the beginning because all of that is just ego. But I don't know, what did you just ask me?
That when we unlearn, when we are able to really let go of the fact that we really don't know everything, and that,
Oh, yes.
yeah,
Yes.
go ahead.
Okay, so yes, so that's what I was going to speak to is, sometimes clients will say to me, how did you know that? Or how did you know that about me? Are you a mind reader? Are you a psychic? And I said, no, it's just that when I'm in session with you, I'm very present. And when
Yeah.
I'm very present, I'm not using my ego to figure out the answer. I'm just allowing it to come up. And so these are things that I'm amazed myself in terms of what comes out of my mouth because I'm not planning it. I'm not figuring it out. And so the answer to how did I know that was I just got present and it came through me.
Yes. And that's
Mhm.
almost like a form of channeling, I guess you would say, is when you're really in tune with other people's energy and just really being present with the things that they're saying. You can really piggyback off of those things and just give them a higher perspective that will allow them to do that shift. Which
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people, I mean, we would like to say that a lot of people are very present, but in the society that we live in, presence is not really a thing. Everybody's so distracted by outside sources, you know what I mean? And so that with that, because this is flowing so beautifully, what do you practice on a daily basis to implement the grounding and the being present and more balanced in your daily life?
I actually do have some regular practices. So, first of all, every morning I usually wake up about a half hour before I need to wake up. And it just happens automatically. I don't know how or why, it just does. And in that half hour, I lay in my bed. I'm in a very relaxed state. And I like that relaxed state because I feel that, things can move through you much better when you're in that relaxed state. And the first thing that I do is I do a little gratitude. And I focus on everything that I'm grateful for before I even get out of bed in the morning. And it could be anything from, my health, to my husband, to my life, to my home, to my family, to my children, to my grandbabies. I also focus on being grateful for things that I don't have as of yet, but focus on them and I'm grateful for them as if I already have them. And so, a little manifesting there. And once I'm done with my gratitude, I spend about 20 minutes in presence.
Mm.
And I do everything other than think. I feel, I listen, I hear, I stay completely in awareness. I am aware of the space outside of me, I'm aware of the space within me, but I'm not thinking, I'm just purely experiencing. And I spend about 20 minutes in presence. And then I got out of bed. And you get out of bed and your mind is clear and your energy's high because you focused on all of this gratitude. Now I'm starting my day. Now, throughout the course of my day, I am really self-aware. I pay attention to what I think about all the time. And to me, enlightenment doesn't mean that you never have negative thoughts, but it does mean that you're aware of them and you're not them and you catch them and work through them if you like, or you get present and get out of them. But those things come in. And so I'm very aware and I check in with myself and I pay attention. And if things are, negative or opposite of what I desire or, fear-based, I will catch and change all of that and work through it. So that's one thing that I do during the course of the day. I do practice gratitude throughout the course of the day too, when things just come up and show themselves to me. And practice presence as much as I can throughout the course of the day as well, because I feel that every time you get present, you empty the head.
Yes.
I always say we're like buckets. And all day long we think and think and think and think and think, so the bucket is full. And we have availability. We have access to all that is, to divine inspiration, to knowing. But if there's no room in the bucket, we can't hear it.
Mm-hmm.
So every time I practice presence, I know that I'm emptying the bucket and I'm making room to receive. So I practice presence quite a bit throughout the course of the day. I love doing it when I drive. It's amazing. And then at night before I go to bed, I ask myself what was the best thing that happened to me today. And I reflect on it. And then I say thank you. And then I go to sleep. That's kind of basically my practices.
No, and that's beautiful, Bonnie, because again, we live in a society that's filled with just so much noise and distractions and negative thinking. I like to call it stinking thinking, where it's
Yeah.
just like not thoughts that really are serving us. And if we really reflect on the fact that all we have is this present moment. Even what happened this morning is already history. It's no longer a part of our current reality. And so there's really no need to hang on to what happened yesterday, the day before, last year. It's just,
So true.
yeah.
I always tell everybody you can think your life or you can experience your life. And, do you know who Don Miguel Ruiz is?
Yes. But
So
Don.
he's famous for the Four Agreements, amongst other books as well. And Don Miguel Ruiz, in one of his books, I think it was in Mastery of Love, he said, we're living in a dream. And I thought, what does he mean by that? What does he mean we're living in a dream? And I kind of sat with it, and all of a sudden I had this aha. And the aha was this: 99.99999% of the time, I'm in my head thinking about the past, which does not exist now, or thinking about the future, which I just made up in my head and does not exist now. And I'm calling that my life. That's my life. And that, Rebecca, was a moment when I went, whoa. It was a whoa moment, like, oh my gosh, I am not experiencing my life. I'm just experiencing a whole cluster of thinking, of thoughts that don't actually even exist now. And that's one of the things that made me want to stop thinking my life and start experiencing my life.
That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. And these concepts are so simple, right? They're so simple yet so profound that these are the types of things that oftentimes we don't sit down to really think about. And it's the simplicity when we just get back to the basics.
It's so true. And, a lot of times when I teach these concepts to people, they say, no, it can't be that simple. It's got to be more complicated. And I say, no, it's actually that simple. It's simple in concept. It's the doing part. And one of the things that I will say that I'm very good at is teaching that translation from understanding the concept to making it applicable to your life. And that's where people struggle is, I love these concepts, or I believe them, or I understand them, but how do I apply them to living my life?
Yeah, no, it is the doing. And it's like when we practice this, and it's the 1% shifts. Just take the
Mm-hmm.
1% shifts to do that on a daily basis where we can develop a new habit of practicing life this way, because
Mm-hmm.
it's a daily practice.
Yep.
It is a daily practice. I want to ask you a question that actually wasn't in this little questionnaire. What legacy do you desire to leave behind?
I feel like I already have left my legacy. I have, been doing this a long time. I've been teaching for 21 years, and over those 21 years, I've helped a lot of people make really dramatic changes. And I even bump into people now who say, I sit around still and go, what would Bonnie do in this situation? Or what would Bonnie say about what to do in this situation? And so I know that whatever I have taught them and the impact I've made on them has stuck. And because it's stuck, it is being imparted by them to other people who are then imparting that to other people. And so I feel like I have, created my legacy already by doing what I do.
And that is such an important concept to live by, because oftentimes, and I'm sure that you've experienced this maybe in your past lives or even through the people that you've worked with, that oftentimes we're kind of robotic, right? Like we
Mm-hmm.
do things because society tells us that we have to do a certain career, or we have to get married right away, and we have to have children, and we have to have the white picket fence, and like all these concepts that are not really real, right? And so with that, oftentimes we're just kind of grazing through life without any purpose, any sense of purpose. And it's so important for us to really understand what our true gifts are in order for us to give back to people, you know what I mean, to be able to live out their own personal legacy as well. Have you ever
Well,
read? Go ahead.
I agree with you 100%. And, Deepak Chopra talks about the law of Dharma. He has his 7 spiritual laws for success, and the final law is the law of Dharma. And he says, the law of Dharma is whatever it is you're good at, no matter what that is, use it to give to others. And that's when you'll feel the ecstasy of what it is to be. And so that's what I feel. I feel like, somewhere along the way, I was given this gift of knowing that I had this level of self-awareness and understanding and could take these concepts and share them with other people and teach them in a way that they can understand. And I love it, and I live it, and I love living it, and I love sharing it. And if I died tomorrow, I would be okay, because I know that I did what I was supposed to do. Versus, somebody used this term, and I don't know where he got it from, and I'm sorry if I'm stealing it from somebody who put it out there, but they talked about it being we're living in the force field. And my impression when I heard it was, what he meant was, you turn on the TV and there's a commercial, and are you the guy that gets up at 4:30 in the morning and rides your Peloton, and you're the first one in the office, and you're running the show, and you're doing this, and you're making money, and that's success. And so it's created, especially in our Western culture, that this is what we have to strive for in order to be happy. Yeah. And for me, success has nothing to do with any of that. Just like you said, the white picket fence and the house and the marriage and the kids it's not about that. It's about, are you growing? Are you happy when you get up in the morning? Do you feel good as you go throughout your day? Are you experiencing your life? To me, that's success.
Yes.
Amen, yes. Sister, right?
yes, to all of that. Because you know what? I did that for a long time. I chased the money. Mm-hmm. I chased the title. I changed. Mm-hmm. I chased working in the fashion industry, it is a very superficial industry. And there's nothing wrong with people who work in the industry. I'm speaking from my own personal experience that it was my calling for a little bit, but then I realized that when I was, waking up with my stomach ache every single day and feeling so stressed out throughout the day, and really being able to tune into that and to recognize that, you know what, I am not the job that I do every day. I am not the clothes that I wear every single day. I'm not a superficial being. I'm not just the physicality of what we portray ourselves to be every single day. Really, it is about a feeling that you get, a sense of purpose, a sense of belonging, a sense of just joy.
Yes, I agree with you. And so I did the same thing, my life will be better when I get the bigger house, when I make more money, when I become more well-known, no, it's not about that. It's about, how do you feel every day? That's success. And so many people strive and work so hard to make the money that'll make me happy. And some people are happy. I'm not going to make a blanket statement that, money doesn't give you happiness. Well, actually, yes, I will. It's not the money that's giving those people who are happy the happiness. It's that they're also happy internally. Yes. Because a lot of people who are striving for that money, it's at what cost? And it's just a lot of stress and worry and fear and striving and things like that. So
yes, you're right. And you know what I've also learned about money is that money is a tool. It's a resource that we use to circulate. And when we're circulating it with divine responsibility, that's really where we find joy in creating more of it. We have more space, and we're not allowing the amount of money to define us as successful, because I know a lot of people that are very wealthy and they're broke. They're broke internally. You know what I mean? They're not really, it doesn't really define a sense of happiness. It's just another physical, right? A physical manifestation. Correct. That is not really, you're not doing anything with it.
Well, and what it creates is a life where you're like this, up, down, up, down, up, down, because when it's the money that's making me happy, I'm happy when something works out, or when I'm successful, or when my client pays their bill, and then right back down, and then working toward that next moment where I can be happy again. Whereas when it's not about an external thing, when it's about an internal thing, then you are not going up and down and up and down and up and down. You just have this sense of joy and peace all the time. And you don't have to get the next thing or do the next activity in order to feel the joy. The joy is already there. It's already within you, and you're feeling it all the time.
Exactly. And it's not really about how much you have, it's what you do with what you have.
Mm-hmm.
Allow you to just create more peace, more sustainability, just a lot more ease, and even creating more of it. And you're not defined by the amount that you have. And that's such a beautiful concept to live by, because then we're not just doing something to just receive money. We're actually doing something with a sense of purpose.
Yes. Great.
Absolutely.
Much more joyful and fulfilling. Mhm.
Absolutely. What words of wisdom would you give somebody that is seeking a deeper understanding of themselves?
I thought about that a lot too when I saw that on your questionnaire. And what came to my mind is an author named John Wellwood. John Wellwood wrote a book called Toward a Psychology of Awakening. And what I really love about John Wellwood is John Wellwood believes, as do I, that it can't be only psychology that you use to change your life. And it can't only be sitting in a room and meditating that you use to change your life. There's this combination of a little psychology and a little spirituality that really can make the difference. And so when I look at some of the teachers that I really aspire to and reach out to and learn from, some of those teachers are all about awareness and just being in awareness. And awareness, I don't know if you've used that term or are aware of that term, but it means it's presence, but beyond presence to a certain focal point. A lot of us, when we're practicing presence, we're present to a specific focal point or to listening to something. Being awareness is being aware that consciousness is awareness, and the awareness that we're aware of is aware of us, and that it's all one and it's all interconnected, and there's no separation whatsoever. And so there's a lot of teachers that teach that, and I love that. But I know for me, I couldn't even get to the point of being open to receiving it unless I did some of the psychological work first. And to me, the psychological work is more about being aware of your thoughts and knowing how to catch your thoughts and knowing how to change the ones that are causing this really uncomfortable feeling in your body. And so that to me is the psychology part. But having learned that and knowing how to do that and being able to shift how I feel and becoming more aware of myself was a stepping stone that led to me getting into some deeper level spiritual concepts. So I think that, doing both is really, really valuable. Work on your mind, work on your thoughts. One of the things that I do with my clients is I teach them a little process so that when the emotions come up or the negative thinking comes up, they literally step one, do this, step two, do this. And by the time they get through the steps, in a minute and a half, they're able to shift themselves. And so to me, that's some of the psychological work. But then at the same time, you're combining it with spiritual work because you're taking responsibility, you're letting go. I teach them how to practice presence. And then, as you evolve through some of that psychological work, it moves you more into the opening for the spiritual work.
That is so good. That is so good. And
Thanks.
understanding and taking responsibility for where you are, and recognizing that oftentimes we really, there's only so far that we can go by ourselves. And oftentimes it's so important to work, with a facilitator that will allow you to really, because oftentimes we're not even really writing this stuff down. We are thinking
Mhm.
it, but we're just making ourselves crazy with all of these thoughts that we're thinking. So working with a facilitator, it gives us the opportunity to kind of really slow things down and put things into perspective. The facilitator will allow us to, or guide us into writing stuff and really kind of decluttering. and understanding why we're even thinking the way that we're thinking, or why
Yes.
we're living the way that we're living.
Yes.
And it just puts so much into perspective for us to be able to make
Mhm.
these changes little by little to have sustainability. And that's the goal, right?
I absolutely. And one of the things too, when it comes to the psychological part, I don't really, they're all connected to each other, even the psychological, because you have to be really self-aware in order to do the psychological work, the ego and catching the thoughts and changing the thoughts and dealing with behaviors and why do I behave the way we do, and understanding those requires self-awareness. And to me, self-awareness is a very spiritual part of who we are. So it's all connected. But I guess when you said, what do I recommend? I don't recommend doing one or the other. I think that we want to combine both. Yes, meditate. Yes, be in awareness. Yes, read books about manifesting and changing your thoughts, and combine all of it, do it all. And, just allow yourself to be guided what resonates with you also. That's the other thing. Sometimes I remember early on, I would read books like, The Power of Now, which, by the way, I love Eckhart Tolle. I love him. He is a huge influence for me and how I operate and live my life and teach. But I remember the first time I ever read The Power of Now, I was like, huh? And I would try to rack my brain trying to figure out, what does he mean? And I, at that moment, went, no, Bonnie, you know what? Just get what you get. Get what you get, read the book, and then go back in 6 months and read it again. And when I went back in 6 months, I read it again, and oh, now I get that. So, to your listeners, read these books. There's so many beautiful, good books out there. Read them. Don't worry about what you don't get. Just get what you get. And then go back and read it again. And you'll see that just from the first reading, something sunk in, and all of a sudden now you're picking up on more. And it's a really good way to approach it. With
Yes.
don't pressure yourself. You can't make yourself learn it any faster than you're going to.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm so glad that you brought up Eckhart Tolle and The Power of Now, because I actually was introduced to that book a few years ago. I want to say it was in my early 20s. And I read it, and then I was gifted that book just like 2 years ago, and I reread it again, and it was like I was reading a whole new book again.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So true.
It is, and it's so beautiful because that really kind of confirms the evolution, right, of our maturity and our experiences and the level of understanding that
Mm-hmm.
we can comprehend every single time. And it doesn't even have, sometimes I'll go back to a book just a few months. And that's how that goes to show how much we're actually really growing, because change is happening constantly. It's
So
every
true.
single day we're experiencing change, but change is a constant and transformation is poised. So we
Mm-hmm.
have to apply what we're learning, all the changes that we're experiencing, in order for us to really, like, the evolution to really happen, and for us to have a deeper understanding of what's really happening.
So true. And for me, how you said it's a choice. For me, the choice is I don't want to feel how I feel when I'm all in my ego. I
Yes.
don't like how it feels. That's my number one motivator. Bonnie, do your work, because it doesn't feel good right now. You're in frustration, or you're hating what is, or you're wanting something to be different than it is, or someone to be different than they are, and it's like that doesn't feel good. And body awareness is really key in all of this, because once you learn how to feel into being in your ego, it's a great motivator for you to want to get out, because it doesn't feel nice.
It is a great note. And I'm so glad that you said that even though you have been doing this work for over 30 years, that you still implement these practices into your daily life. Because at the end of the day, humans, we are all human. We are all human, and we are experiencing duality all the time. We live in the duality filled world. So it's important to understand the contrast that we experience every single day of evil and good, right? Because we get to choose really where we want to live every single day. And that's a practice, because every day we're going to experience even like new experiences with different people, especially if we're going out into the world to interact. And sometimes we're going to have experiences that don't necessarily feel good, and they end up making us go back into ego, right? And it's a daily thing. So even humans like Bonnie, who have been practicing this stuff for as long as she has, that she still has to implement the work. And it is a daily thing.
Well, if you think about being in the negative space, we're implementing that all the time too. Those of us who are very negative, it is something that we're implementing, and maybe it doesn't feel like we're choosing it, but we're not choosing to move out of it. And so, if you're going to take that same energy that you put into how it feels to be angry or worried or fearful, and put that energy into shifting it, and again, with a good set of tools, which call me, reach out to me, I'll teach them to you. But you can work through anything that comes up that doesn't feel good, or that's uncomfortable, or that's challenging.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so below every single video on the YouTube channel and on my blog, I always will include the contact information for how you can connect with the person that I'm interviewing, because every single person has such unique gifts to what their specific calling is on this planet. And so, if you are called to connect with these human beings that are being interviewed, by all means, please do so, because we are all operating in different spaces. And this world is so large, yet it's kind of small. And a lot of people are so divinely connected, right? So, it's impossible for each and every one of us to reach the entire planet when we have specific work that needs to be done in our energetic field. And so, whether you live in Arizona or in other parts of the world, you have the opportunity to connect with these people, because this we all need assistance, and we there's only so far that we can go alone. And it's so important for us, especially when we're in a space of need and we're in a space where we really need to accelerate our healing. But I just encourage you to really embrace where you are currently and to reach out for help, because it's okay and we're all here to serve. Bonnie, do you have any ending statements that you'd like to add?
Be a lifelong learner. Like you said, don't be afraid to reach out. I always reach out to teachers that I admire and love. I don't think I know everything by any stretch of the imagination. And, I'm always open to learning something new, and I highly recommend that. And, something else I think that is important just to tell everybody and remind everybody: accept and love yourself. Accept and love yourself. You're already perfect. You're already enough. You're already whole. You are already everything you could possibly want or need. You're already pure potentiality. You're already a creator. You are already everything. And the only thing that prevents us from knowing ourselves that way is the fact that we're all mind identified. So practice some presence so you can get out of the mind, and love yourself and accept yourself. Beating yourself up will not make you better. That is a fact. Focus on what you have rather than what you don't have, what's right rather than what's wrong, and what your strengths are rather than what your weaknesses are. What we focus on, we get more of.
Yes, I could have not said that better myself. I am so grateful, Bonnie, that you have taken the time to volunteer your time to share all of your wisdom and your knowledge, your experiences that are really going to benefit the viewer. If you are watching this today, tomorrow, next week, 10 years, 20 years from now, that you continue to be blessed by these conversations that are so relevant and so important. Because although it may seem like we're living in a negative space right now, we're actually clearing out, we're purging everything that doesn't need to be here anymore. And it's so important to embrace these concepts of unconditional love, acceptance, and to recognize that every single second of the day, we have the opportunity to really change our narrative, to change our perspective, and to change the trajectory of our life, because we are conscious creators and we have the ability to do that. So with that, I am sending you so much love and many blessings today, and I will see you soon. Peace.